Narrator: there's something magical about achieving a dream you've worked toward your entire life. After 30 years of building my business from the ground up, I finally had enough to buy something I'd dreamed about since I was a kid. Not just any house, but the house. And in that garage sat my pride and joy. A Lamborghini, Aventador. Now I know what some of you might be thinking. Here's another rich guy showing off. But let me tell you something, that car represented every sleepless night. Every missed family dinner. Every risk I took to build something from nothing. When I looked at those sleek lines and heard that engine purr, I wasn't just seeing a car. I was seeing proof that the American dream was still alive. The neighborhood seemed perfect at first. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained homes, the kind of place where you'd expect to spend your golden years in peace. I introduced myself to the neighbors, brought cookies to the elderly couple next door, and even offered to help with yard work. But then I met her neighbor. "Welcome to Maple Ridge. I'm the HOA president. I just wanted to discuss a few concerns about your recent additions to the neighborhood." Aesthetic. Narrator: Margaret, though everyone called her something less flattering behind her back, had been the self-appointed guardian of neighborhood standards for over a decade. She had that particular way of speaking that made every sentence sound like a lecture. Margaret: Now, I'm sure you understand that we maintain a certain image here. That vehicle of yours, while I'm sure it's expensive, sends the wrong message. Perhaps something more understated. A nice Lexus. Maybe. Narrator: I tried to keep things friendly. After all, we were neighbors. We'd be seeing each other for years to come. Homeowner: I appreciate the feedback. Margaret: But the car meets all HOA requirements. It's parked in my own garage. I've checked, there's nothing in the bylaws about vehicle choice. Margaret: Well, perhaps the bylaws need ... updating. Narrator: That was just the beginning. Over the next few months, the complaints started rolling in. My garage door was apparently too modern. My landscaping was too flashy. She even measured my grass to see if it was regulation height. I thought about my father, who taught me that sometimes you have to pick your battles. "Son," he used to say, "not every hill is worth dying on," so I tried to let it slide. I figured she'd get bored and move on to someone else. I was wrong. Narrator: Margaret had a 17-year-old son. Better. Now. I remember being 17, that age where everything feels possible and consequences seem like something happens to other people. At first I felt for the kid. Living with someone like Margaret couldn't have been easy. Tyler started hanging around my driveway more and more. Through my kitchen window, I'd see him peering through the garage windows, clearly fascinated by the car. Part of me was flattered. I remembered being that age and dreaming about cars like this. Narrator: One afternoon, I was bringing in groceries when I saw him standing particularly close to the garage door. Homeowner: She's a beauty, isn't she, Tyler? Tyler: Yeah, I guess. Must be nice having money to burn. Narrator: Something in his tone caught me off guard. This wasn't teenage awkwardness or even envy. There was something else there. Something that made me uncomfortable. Homeowner: I worked pretty hard for her. Maybe sometime, with your mom's permission, you'd like to sit inside? Just look, don't touch. Tyler: Maybe I don't need permission. Narrator: That comment should have been my warning sign. But I was still thinking like the optimistic guy who believed in giving people the benefit of the doubt. I figured he was just trying to act tough, the way teenage boys do. A few days later, I came home from a business dinner to find handprints on my garage door on the outside, pressing against the glass panels. When I knocked on Margaret's door to mention it, she barely looked up from her evening news. Margaret: Boys will be boys. Maybe if you didn't park such a flashy car where everyone can see it, you wouldn't have this problem. Narrator: That night I couldn't sleep. Something about her response bothered me more than I could put into words. It wasn't just the lack of accountability, it was the way she'd said it, like my property was somehow public domain. I made a decision that would prove to be crucial later. I upgraded my security system. Motion sensors, cameras, reinforced locks. My wife thought I was being paranoid, but 30 years in business had taught me that an ounce of prevention was worth a pound of cure. Narrator, looking back now, I realized that was the moment everything changed. I'd gone from being a neighbor trying to fit in to someone preparing for war. I just didn't know it yet. Next time, I'll tell you about the night my worst fears came true and how quickly a dream can turn into a nightmare. Narrator, you know, there are some sounds you never forget. The phone call telling you a loved one is gone. The doctor delivering bad news. The sound of your dreams literally crashing down around you for me. That sound came at 11:47 p.m. on a Saturday night in October. I'd had a good day. Dinner with my wife. A relaxing evening watching old movies. The kind of Saturday that reminds you why you work so hard, so you can enjoy moments like these. Around 11, I'd done my usual routine. Checked the locks, turned off the lights, made sure the garage was secure. The crash was unlike anything I'd ever heard. It wasn't just loud. It was the kind of sound that tells you, even before you see anything, that your life just changed forever. Homeowner, what the hell was that? Narrator, I ran downstairs, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. When I opened the door to the garage, the scene that greeted me will be burned into my memory until the day I die. My garage door was hanging off its tracks, twisted metal and splintered wood everywhere. And there, sitting in my Lamborghini, my pride and joy. My symbol of everything I'd worked for was Tyler. The front of the car was smashed against the garage wall. Pieces of headlight and bumper were scattered across the floor like confetti from the world's most expensive party. Tyler was gripping the steering wheel, his face white as a sheet, the engine still running. Homeowner, Tyler, what, ... How did you? Get out of my car. Tyler, I wanted to see what it felt like. I didn't mean for this to happen. Narrator, didn't mean for this to happen. As if breaking into my garage, stealing my car, and destroying both the vehicle and the building were just some innocent mistake. I yanked open the car door. What was left of it and pulled him out. That's when Margaret came running over. I learned that entitlement apparently runs in families. Margaret, don't you dare lay a hand on my son. Tyler, are you hurt? Are you okay? Narrator, notice what she asked first. Not what happened? Not I'm so sorry. Her first concern was whether the kid who'd just committed a felony was comfortable. Homeowner. Margaret, your son broke into my garage and destroyed my car. Do you see this damage? Margaret, oh please. You can afford to fix it. You have insurance, don't you? Tyler could have been seriously injured. What if that car had exploded or something? Narrator, in 30 years of business, I've dealt with difficult people. Unreasonable customers, demanding partners, even a few outright crooks. But I had never, and I mean never, encountered someone who could look at clear evidence of their family's wrongdoing and somehow make themselves the victim homeowner. What if it had exploded? Margaret, he broke into my garage. He stole my car. Look at this place. Margaret, if you hadn't been flaunting your wealth, tempting a teenage boy, this never would have happened. Honestly, what did you expect? Parking something like that where a kid could see it every day. Narrator, that was the moment right there when I realized I wasn't dealing with a difficult neighbor anymore. I was dealing with someone who lived in a completely different reality, where her family could do no wrong and everyone else was responsible for the consequences. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. Margaret, you can't call the police. He's just a child. This is a neighborhood matter. Homeowner. He's 17, Margaret. And this is a crime. Narrator, the police arrived about 15 minutes later, 15 of the longest minutes of my life, with Margaret alternating between berating me and consoling Tyler, who is now claiming the whole thing was just a prank gone wrong. Officer Martinez, a veteran cop in his 50s, took one look at the scene and knew exactly what he was dealing with. Officer Martinez, sir, can you walk me through what happened here? Narrator, I explained everything while Tyler and Margaret huddled together, whispering frantically. But here's the thing about the truth. It doesn't need coaching or coordinating stories. It just is. The evidence was overwhelming. The security cameras I'd installed caught everything: Tyler using a crowbar to break into the garage, struggling with the car's sophisticated ignition system, finally getting it started, then losing control within seconds as the powerful engine launched the car forward into the wall. Officer Martinez: "Ma'am, I'm going to need to arrest your son. The charges will likely include breaking and entering, destruction of property, and attempted grand theft auto." "Margaret, this is ridiculous. Over a car. A stupid car." Narrator: "A stupid car. That's what she called it. The thing I'd worked 30 years to afford? The symbol of everything I'd built. The dream I'd finally been able to touch." As they put Tyler in handcuffs gently, because he cooperated once he realized the situation was real, I stood there looking at the wreckage of my garage and felt something I hadn't experienced in decades. Complete helplessness. Homeowner: "What happens now?" Officer Martinez: "Now, you document everything for insurance, get repair estimates, and prepare for what's probably going to be a long legal process." "I'm sorry this happened to you, sir. Some people just don't understand that actions have consequences." Narrator: "That night, I sat in my living room looking out at the destroyed garage and wondered how things had gone so wrong so fast. I'd tried to be a good neighbor. I'd worked hard, played by the rules, and treated everyone with respect. But I was about to learn that some people see kindness as weakness, and success as something they're entitled to tear down. The real battle was just beginning next time. How the HOA turned against me, and why sometimes the system protects the wrong people." Narrator: "They say justice is blind, but sometimes I think it's just looking the other way. After Tyler's arrest, I thought the worst was behind me. The evidence was clear. The damage was documented. Surely now everyone could see who was really at fault. I was naive." Insurance adjuster: "Mr. Johnson, I've got to be honest with you. Since this was intentional damage caused by a minor, your standard policy won't cover the full extent of repairs. You're looking at about $180,000 in damages. We can only cover maybe 60% of that." Narrator: $180,000. Let me put that in perspective for those of you who might not be familiar with luxury car repairs. That wasn't just fixing a dent. We were talking about a complete front-end rebuild. Custom parts that had to be ordered from Italy. Specialized paintwork that only 3 shops in the country could handle properly. Homeowner: "So you're telling me I'm responsible for over $70,000 because someone else's kid decided to steal my car?" Insurance adjuster: "I know it doesn't seem fair, sir. Your best bet is to pursue civil action against the family. Make them responsible for what their son did." Narrator: "So that's exactly what I did. I hired Sarah Chen, one of the best civil attorneys in the county. She was in her 40s, sharp as a tack, and had a reputation for not backing down from difficult cases." Attorney Chen: "This should be straightforward." Mr. Johnson: "Clear evidence, documented damages, admission of guilt. We'll file suit against both the minor and his parents for full restitution, plus legal fees." Narrator: "While we were preparing the lawsuit, I was trying to get back to some semblance of normal life. The damaged Lamborghini was towed to a specialty shop in the city. My garage looked like a war zone. And every day, I had to walk past the destruction and remember what had happened. But the real shock was yet to come." Narrator: "About 2 weeks after Tyler's arrest, I found an official-looking envelope in my mailbox. It was from the Maple Ridge Homeowners Association, with Margaret's name printed at the bottom as president." Narrator: "Dear Mr. Johnson, the HOA board has completed its investigation into the incident of October 15th. While we sympathize with the property damage you experienced, we find that your decision to store a high-value, attention-grabbing vehicle has created an attractive nuisance that disrupted the peace and safety of our community. An attractive nuisance? They were claiming that owning something nice was somehow my fault for what happened to it." Narrator: "Additionally, your decision to involve law enforcement in what should have been handled as a neighborhood dispute has created unnecessary drama and publicity. That reflects poorly on Maple Ridge. The board is assessing a fine of $8,500 for community disruption and requiring Removal of the vehicle within 38 days. Narrator: I read that letter 3 times before it really sank in. The HOA, led by the mother of the kid who'd destroyed my property, was fining me for being the victim of a crime. Called Attorney Chen immediately. Attorney Chen, they can't be serious. This is beyond unreasonable. It's potentially illegal. HOAs have authority over certain property matters, but they can't punish you for being the victim of a crime. Homeowner: so what do we do? Attorney Chen: we fight back. On both fronts. Narrator: the next HOA board meeting was something I'll never forget. It was held in the community center, a small room with folding chairs and fluorescent lighting that made everything look slightly sickly. Margaret sat at a card table with 2 other board members, Bob Miller, a retired accountant who seemed uncomfortable with the whole situation, and Janet Walsh, who'd apparently been Margaret's ally for years. About 20 neighbors showed up, which was unusual. Word had gotten around about what happened, and people were curious to see how it would play out. Margaret: Mr. Johnson, you requested time to address the board's decision regarding the October 15th incident. Homeowner: that's right. I want everyone here to understand what really happened. And what's happening now? Narrator: I told the whole story. From Tyler's weeks of lurking around my garage to the break-in, the damage, and his arrest. I showed photos of the destruction. I read the police report. I presented everything calmly and factually. Homeowner: now, instead of taking responsibility for her son's actions, Mrs. Patterson is using her position on this board to punish me for being the victim of a crime. She wants to fine me $8,500 and force me to get rid of my car because her son couldn't keep his hands off other people's property. Bob Miller: Margaret, is this accurate? Are we really fining someone for having their property vandalized? Margaret: the board has a responsibility to maintain community standards and peace. Mr. Johnson's ostentatious display created a situation that led to this incident. Neighbor: that's ridiculous. Margaret: if someone breaks into my house, is that my fault for having nice things? Neighbor: my teenager looks at Mr. Johnson's car all the time. Should I be worried he's going to steal it next? Margaret: this is different. This is about community responsibility. Homeowner: no, Margaret. This is about you being unable to admit that your son committed a serious crime. And now you're abusing your position to try to make me the bad guy. Narrator: that's when Janet Walsh, who'd been quiet up to that point, surprised everyone. Janet Walsh: Margaret, I didn't realize the full extent of what Tyler had done when we voted on this. Breaking into someone's garage with a crowbar? That's not a prank. That's serious. Bob Miller: I agree. I think we need to reconsider this decision. Margaret: you can't just change your votes. We already decided. Attorney Chen: actually they can. And if they don't, we'll be filing a lawsuit against the HOA as well. What you're doing here constitutes harassment and possible civil rights violations. Narrator: the vote to rescind my fine was unanimous, except for Margaret, who stormed out before they could make it official. But that wasn't the end of it. As I was leaving, several neighbors approached me privately. Neighbor, Mr. Johnson, I want you to know that most of us never agreed with how Margaret runs things around here. She's been bullying people for years, but nobody wanted to speak up. Neighbor, she threatened to fine us when we wanted to paint our front door blue. Said it wasn't traditional enough. Neighbor, she made us remove our bird feeder because it was attracting unwanted wildlife. Narrator: that night I realized something important. This wasn't just about me and Tyler and a damaged car anymore. This was about a system that had allowed one person's need for control to poison an entire community. The civil lawsuit was moving forward, but I knew the real battle was just beginning. Narrator: sometimes standing up for yourself means standing up for everyone who couldn't stand up for themselves. Next time, the courtroom confrontation that changed everything, and how justice finally caught up with those who thought they were above it. Narrator: you know, there's something profound about watching justice work the way it's supposed to. After months of dealing with denial, manipulation, and outright lies, I was about to see what happens when the truth finally gets its day in court. The civil trial took place on a crisp February morning. I'll admit I was nervous. Despite having all the evidence on my side, you never know how these things will go. Attorney Chen had warned me that sometimes juries sympathize with families over individuals, especially when there's a minor involved. Attorney Chen: remember, Mr. Johnson, we're not here to destroy anyone's life. We're here to make sure you're compensated for damages you didn't cause and shouldn't have to pay. 4. Narrator: Margaret and Tyler sat with their lawyer, a young public defender who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Margaret had barely made eye contact with me since that HOA meeting where her neighbors finally saw through her act. The prosecution presented their case first. The security footage was devastating. Crystal clear images of Tyler breaking into my garage, struggling with the car's complex systems, then losing control. There was no ambiguity, no room for interpretation. Prosecutor: ladies and gentlemen, this isn't a complicated case. A 17-year-old committed breaking and entering, theft, and destruction of property. The damages are real, documented, and substantial. The question isn't whether it happened, we have video proof. The question is whether the family will take responsibility. Narrator: then came Margaret's testimony. And honestly, I felt sorry for her lawyer. She took the stand with that same defiant attitude she'd shown throughout this whole ordeal. Defense attorney: Mrs. Patterson, can you describe your relationship with the defendant before this incident? Margaret: Mr. Johnson moved into our community about 8 months ago. From the beginning, he seemed determined to stand out. The car, the modern landscaping, the general attitude of superiority. Prosecutor: Your Honor, the plaintiff's lifestyle choices aren't on trial here. Judge: sustained. Mrs. Patterson: please focus on facts relevant to the case. Narrator: but Margaret couldn't help herself. The more she talked, the more she revealed about her real motivations. Margaret: Tyler is a good boy who made one mistake. Boys his age are curious about expensive things. And when someone flaunts their wealth in front of impressionable teenagers, ... double quotes prosecutor, Mrs. Patterson: are you saying your son broke into Mr. Johnson's garage because the car was too tempting? Margaret: I'm saying that people with expensive toys have a responsibility to keep them away from children. Narrator: I watched the jury's faces during her testimony. You could see them processing what she was really saying, that somehow owning something nice made me responsible when someone else stole it. When Tyler took the stand, I expected more of the same defiance. Instead, I saw something that gave me hope for his future. Genuine remorse. Tyler: I know what I did was wrong. I knew it was wrong when I was doing it. I wanted to know what it felt like to drive something like that. Prosecutor: Tyler: did Mr. Johnson ever give you permission to enter his garage? Tyler: no, sir. Prosecutor: did he ever give you permission to touch or drive his car? Tyler: no, sir. He said, maybe someday I could sit in it, but only with permission and supervision. Prosecutor: so you knew you were doing something illegal when you broke into his garage? Tyler: yes, sir. I'm really sorry, Mr. Johnson. I messed up really bad. Narrator: in that moment, I saw something I hadn't seen throughout this entire ordeal. Accountability. Not from Margaret, but from Tyler himself. Despite everything his mother had taught him about avoiding responsibility, some part of him understood right from wrong. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Jury foreman: Your Honor, we find in favor of the plaintiff. The defendants are ordered to pay full restitution for damages in the amount of $184,000, plus legal fees and court costs. Narrator: Margaret's reaction was exactly what you'd expect. She stood up, pointed at me, and shouted about how the system was rigged against regular families and in favor of rich people who can afford fancy lawyers. The judge was not amused. Judge: Mrs. Patterson, your son committed a serious crime that resulted in substantial damages. This court has determined fair compensation based on the evidence. I suggest you use this as a learning opportunity for your family. Narrator: here's where the story takes an interesting turn. Over the next few weeks, I learned more about Margaret's financial situation. It turned out she'd been living beyond her means for years, using credit and her ex-husband's alimony to maintain appearances in an expensive neighborhood. She couldn't pay the judgment. Attorney Chen, Mr. Johnson, they're going to have to put a lien on the house. Mrs. Patterson has indicated she'll need to sell too, to satisfy the debt. Narrator, part of me felt vindicated. But honestly, a larger part of me just felt sad. This whole situation could have been avoided if she'd just taught her son to respect other people's property and taken responsibility when things went wrong. Narrator, about 6 months later, I saw the for sale sign go up in Margaret's yard. Through the neighborhood grapevine, I learned that Tyler had been accepted to a community college in another state, apparently. The whole experience had motivated him to get his act together and focus on his education. As for Margaret, she moved to a smaller place across town. I haven't seen her since. Narrator, my Lamborghini was eventually restored to perfect condition. The garage was rebuilt, stronger and more secure than before. But the real change was in the neighborhood itself. Without Margaret's constant complaints and power games, the HOA became what it was supposed to be, a group of neighbors working together to maintain our community. Bob Miller took over as president and immediately revoked several of Margaret's more ridiculous rules. Bob Miller, folks, we're here to maintain property values and resolve genuine disputes, not micromanage how people live their lives. If you want to paint your door blue, plant different flowers. Or drive whatever car you can afford. That's called living in America. Narrator. Several neighbors approached me over the following months to apologize for not standing up sooner. Neighbor, Mr. Johnson, I want you to know that I always thought what happened to you was wrong. I was afraid of becoming Margaret's next target, homeowner. I understand. Nobody wants to paint a target on their back. But sometimes if we don't stand up for each other, who will? Narrator, looking back on this whole experience, I learned several important lessons that I think apply to anyone, regardless of age or economic situation. First, success doesn't make you immune to other people's problems. Sometimes it makes you a target for them. But that doesn't mean you should hide what you've worked for or apologize for achieving your dreams. Second, there's a big difference between being neighborly and being a pushover. I tried for months to appease someone who was fundamentally unreasonable, and it only made things worse. Most importantly, I learned that accountability matters. Tyler made a terrible mistake, but when he finally owned up to it, he started becoming a better person. Margaret never took responsibility, and she lost everything. Narrator, today, when I start up that Lamborghini and hear that beautiful engine roar to life, it doesn't just represent the years I worked to afford it. It represents something more fundamental, the right to enjoy the fruits of your labor without apology, and the importance of standing up for yourself when others try to tear down what you've built. To anyone listening who's worked hard to achieve their dreams, don't let other people's jealousy or sense of entitlement diminish what you've accomplished. You earned it. You deserve it. And you have every right to protect it. Narrator, that's my story. Thanks for listening, and remember, success isn't something to apologize for. It's something to be proud of.